Okay, so it is November 7th, and we got some news on the team. The team essentially said that they're going to keep the coach. Uh, they're going to keep the coach, and the reason they're keeping the coach is because of the commitment to Billy and also the amount of growth that they've seen from the beginning of the year to now with the younger players. I stand by that. I always thought that they should have been playing the younger players to begin with from the beginning of the year. I don't know why you're just playing all the older players. I get that because they've been there the longest, but like obviously have not shown any growth. And the younger players are hungrier to do things. They actually want to play. They want to go to college and play college football. They don't want to sit on the bench and watch the other guys and learn. They already know how to play the position. They just need to learn the instinct of how to go, when to go, and the habits of the SEC and whatever. Yeah, I don't know. Dumb, stupid. I don't know. I don't know why you weren't playing the younger players a lot more. Like, it's insane, but whatever. Anyway, essentially this is just this literal. So this is kind of the, if they end next year with a 5-7 record, it's going to be lights out for the entire administration. I think you can't have Scott Strickland come out and say, I'm going to stand by this guy. You can't have another 5-7 season after next year. Like, you can't have any of that. I would say it's a shame, really. It's kind of somewhat of a big shame, but I can understand why they're doing it. I'm going to relate this to the NFL for a second. The Cleveland Browns are a team that have sucked for many generations, and they continually fired coaches and always got new quarterbacks. And the video I watched essentially said that because they did that, that's why they sucked for a very long time. There was no consistency from the top down. And I think that Florida's kind of going through that same thing. After God, what's his name? I was going to say Muschamp, but after Urban Meyer, I think it was Muschamp, he stayed for 3 years and they fired him just because he went 4-8 one year. I was also on that train, but I was also very young and didn't really understand how football worked. I just wanted to win. Let's see. And then, who was it? Jim McElwain was after him. He worked on Saban's staff at some point. They thought he was going to be good. And he was good because he was a great quarterback. He had Will Greer, and they won a bunch of games. And then he got suspended for PEDs. And then they kind of still won games with Treon Harris, but they were not blowouts. I think they beat Vanderbilt one year 10-9. It was just like, what? I think they also beat Tennessee either that same year or the year after 10-9. So it was just like, this team is offensively inept. And then after him, they had Dan Mullen, right? Was it? I can't remember anymore. I think it was Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen was there. They fired him because, well, from what I've read online and from what I've seen, yes, it was because apparently he didn't recruit and Kirby kind of called him out. And I think that was like an embarrassment for the team and for the university. Apparently he was also an asshole just to people, which I would say I've met him once and I can kind of get that asshole aura. So yeah, it would make sense. But he ended up winning in the end because Florida continued to pay him, I think, until last July to pay out his contract. So I guess he won. And then the next one that they got was now Billy Napier. Billy seemed to me did not have any good years. He's had losing seasons every year he's been here. And people are like, you can't do that. Apparently, he's like 50th in the country for recruiting this year. You can't really do that either. Yeah, so it's kind of a bad sign for everybody, and everyone's just kind of losing their mind. Am I losing my mind? I think I don't care anymore. I'm just like, I'm going to watch the games that I hope that they win, and if they win, great. If they don't, whatever. So Florida, I think, as a team, has sucked for a very long time, even before this whole thing. I think ever since 2012 on, the team has been bad. Now, they've had good teams put together, but the team as a whole and the program as a whole has just been down. From the time that Missouri joined the SEC East, this is before they broke off and did not do divisions, Florida was 6-6 against that team. So they were literally tied. Now, if we're really thinking about it, Missouri should not have been anywhere near as good as 6-6 against Florida in any way. like that's kind of insane to know that a team coming from a whole nother conference, and of course, yeah, Missouri was, I think, probably used to playing Oklahoma, and I think they also played Texas in that other conference. Because I think they were in the Big 12 or the Big 8, one of the fucking two. So yeah, they were probably used to playing good teams, but like that you should not. I feel like Florida's a team should be at least like, what's that? 12, 7-5. What? Yeah, 7-5 against Missouri, not 6-6 since Missouri joined the SEC. Like that's kind of ridiculous. And I kind of gauge that as a measure of why the team is like not is a great program. Now this is no shit on the players. These players are probably great. They're just doing their job. They're just kind of doing what they love, playing football. You win some, you lose some. That's how it works, right? The 2012 team I will always love, just because it was like, oh my God, they're really winning and they're doing good things. And then they had a heartbreaker of a loss against Georgia, but otherwise they did pretty well that year. All the other years after that were just like up and down. They were relatively good in the sense of like beating Tennessee and Kentucky, I think. Yeah. But yeah. Anywho. So yeah, I would argue that the program hasn't. It's just taken a dip. What caused that? I don't know. I don't work there. I never played there, so I really couldn't tell you what caused a dip. But it is a very interesting one indeed. I don't know. I guess we'll just kind of see. I believe this is going to be a very dumb thing to say out loud, but I think this can happen. I believe Florida can at least beat Ole Miss, and beat LSU. Now, I think they need to beat LSU more than they need to beat Ole Miss, because they haven't beat LSU in years. It's been, I feel like the last time they beat them was the Felipe Franks year, and like that was a disgusting game, because that game was like you literally had to rely on your defense, and that was the year that I think Jeff Collins was the defensive coordinator, and everyone thought like, oh my God, no, not Jeff Collins, was it? It was either Jeff or it was Gratham. Oh, I can't remember which one, but I think Jeff was the. I think it might have been Jeff Collins, and then they hired Ted Gratham like after that season. Anyway, Todd Gratham, whatever. Yeah, I think they need to beat LSU just because it's been so long. Now, this is for me more than it is for anything else. I just feel like 2020 was ridiculous. I remember they lost to LSU one time at home, 17-19. Like you couldn't kick a field goal. But that was in the McElwain era. I don't know. I don't know anything about how all this works. I just know that this is something that's going to be a big deal for the next 4 weeks if they don't win 4 games. I'm not expecting them to beat Texas. Hell, I'm honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it's not even close. If they do beat Texas, wow. If they don't beat Texas, well, I really hope DJ doesn't play that game at all. I want him to sit down. I'm totally fine being obliterated on national television, if it means that the person who you are literally hedging your bets on, and the reason why the head coach is staying, is healthy for the next 3 games after that. I don't think you need to rush this process. I don't care that like it's a hamstring injury. I don't know what player, but I feel like there are a lot of players who get hamstring injuries a lot, all the time. And I think it's kind of weird. Like, I feel like that's one of the big things that you should be working on as a strength and conditioning coach. And like seemingly every year, and whatever football team, it's like my hamstring hurts, or I pulled it, or whatever. Of course, there are factors like the field and just how you land and all that other shit. But it's just like, what? How? Some people are blaming that because they got rid of Savage, the last strength and conditioning coach, that the world's going to be better, or the strength and conditioning went down. I don't know. I don't know how physiotherapy works. I'm not that person. I don't know. Maybe you know. I'm not a scientist, but I remember hearing a report during the summer that like DJ and I think a few other players gained a lot of muscle mass or something. I don't know. Um, so yeah, I'm not gonna pretend to know or realize like, oh, it's because you got rid of this one guy that everything changed. I don't know, because now Savage is actually at Ole Miss. He works with Lane Kiffin. Implications for the future. Essentially, they have to win all their games now. Because you cannot lose a single home game for the rest of the season. You have 2 left, and you definitely can't lose to Florida State, which I'm really not expecting them to lose to Florida State. But you know, it's college football and it's a rivalry weekend, and anything really happens. Yeah, they need to win at least one home game, because the I don't know. You definitely need to win at least one, if not both. In fact, actually, no. I would say you need to win the last 3 games of the season. I don't think they're impossible to win. I think LSU has shown that they're somewhat of a trash heap in some respects. But if you give them a shot, they will stomp on you. And then Ole Miss, I don't know. They just fake injuries, so it's not like, I don't know. Fake them back, I guess. I don't fucking know. And then next year you're at Miami instead of home against Miami, and that's the first game of the year, so you better be fucking ready for that one. Because if you get blown out, I don't know. I would say if I were a fan or a student, but students aren't gonna do this, I wouldn't show if they lose, like, I don't know. If they lose a close game, I wouldn't show up to the next game. And I don't mean a close game like at Texas. I mean like a close game at home. I think you really need to solidify that you have this team together and you have this team put together, because statistics-wise, it doesn't look like you do. It doesn't look like that you have any sort of recruits coming in, because you're 50th in the country. That's ridiculous. As a state school with a brand name and you were 50th in recruiting, you've cemented yourself, unless you're going to somehow, unless you've been promising kids who have committed to other places giant bags, like, which I don't think you have, because I think Billy would have been gone fucking week 3. Yeah, I don't know. Like they say recruiting is a lifeblood of college football, and it's very true, because Georgia has gotten really good through recruiting. Alabama was great through recruiting. LSU was really good through recruiting. Even though they didn't win national titles every year, they're at least competitive in their games and win games that they probably should have lost. I.e. the 2018, 17, whatever Jim McElwain game. Yeah, and it's the last thing is I'll say is it's pretty obvious that his job is tied to DJ Lagway, and they really don't want to lose him. Is it a good idea to tie your team's future to one guy? Well, if you don't have anyone in the pipeline, I can kind of see why you did it, because I don't have their computer, the rankings up, or who their stat sheet is, but I know they got a bunch of quarterbacks on the roster. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing for me, is the 50th quarterback spot roster, or the 50th recruiting class. That's something that I don't think you can have. Because of all of the teams that you play next year are higher than 50, which I'm sure all of them are, it is not good. But I will say some positives. It seems the team really does rally around DJ, and that's great. It seems like the younger players are doing really well. They still need a better offensive line, like a much better one. Like, the offensive line is trying as hard as they can, but the defensive lines that they're going against are absolute monsters, and I'm not sure that the offensive line that we have is good enough to actually stand up against the trenches, as they say. Because holy fuck, it took them, 3-4 weeks to figure out how to, like, actually stand up against somebody and not get pushed back, which is really, I don't know. But yeah, they definitely need to hire an offensive coordinator. I think that's one big reason maybe why some of the recruiting hasn't been so well, because you don't have a guy who can put a product in the field that can show the recruits, like, hey, look at this. I do this with this receiver. I do this with this offensive lineman. I do this with this QB, whatever. And you just have Billy doing that. You really can't just have one guy doing that. Granted, if you do the OC, it'll be one guy. But you can't have the head coach who's also saying, I'm the offensive guy, show up to a kid's house and say, hey, come to my school. Because A, you're the coach, and B, you're the offensive guy, and the offense that you're putting on the field for the past 3 years going on 4 is not great. Granted, the second half of the year is great, but yeah. Yeah, so I feel like you definitely need to do that, and I think you definitely need to, yeah, I don't know. You need somebody who can really hammer home why this university. And you can't just say because we have some players. You need to actually give a cultural reason why this university and why nowhere else. Because at this point, everywhere else has surpassed you in every way, shape, and form. And they're going to continue to do that because you don't have a record of showing that you were good at things. And you can't point to Anthony Richardson because he just got benched in the NFL because of his terrible performances. And apparently what he said was really, really bad. I don't really watch the NFL anymore. So, yeah, I don't know. And you can't just say, we got a guy with a big arm either. So what? A lot of teams aren't going to get a guy with a big arm. So, what is it about your team that you can actually say is something that's worth caring about as a recruit and just as anything else? So, yeah. That's my rant about the team, about the season. I hope they go to a bowl game this year. If they don't, I mean, yeah. I guess the last thing is I would say is that either A, the school couldn't come up with $26 million to buy him out. B, the school could find it, but the person didn't want to pay. C, there was the coaches that they were interested in said no. Or D, A, B, C, D, yeah. They realized that there'll be another revolving door of coaches, and that if they hired another guy, it would just be a whole nother G5 guy, and they'd get laughed at, and they didn't want to do that. Everyone says they should have gone after Lane Kiffin. I kind of agree, but I'm assuming he either didn't want to do it, or he kind of turned into Nick Saban for a bit and said, okay, I want this, this, and this. And the school was like, no. And so then they were like, okay, bye. And so then they had to really recommit to this guy, Mr. Napier. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I'm assuming Clark Lee didn't want to leave Vanderbilt. I wouldn't want to either. I don't want him to leave Vanderbilt. I want him to stay there because I want them to be great forever, or at least like a spoiled team. God, what other coaches? James Franklin. People say James Franklin, but they say he can't win the big one, and I'm assuming that's also just in the minds of people who hold the money. I made a video about the guy from Toledo, I think, and the AD. I think those guys would have been like, okay, or better, because the culture is what you need. I think the team needs an actual culture, and I don't think they have one now. So hopefully this younger group of guys on the team can build one, but they don't have one, and they haven't had one for a fat minute. I think a lot of the kids that they were recruiting just wanted a D1 scholarship, and Florida just happened to say, hey, you have arms and legs, here you go. And so that's what happened. But I don't think a lot of them were like that amazing. I think a lot of them just wanted a jersey. And sometimes, I don't even think it was that. I think sometimes the coaching was just so bad that those guys didn't even get a chance to shine. Because I think there was one white receiver, number 9. I don't remember his name, but I think through his entire career at Florida, for 4 years, he only caught 2 passes. And I think everything else was either special teams or something else. Now, maybe he wasn't good enough. I don't know. But I feel like if you're going to put that much money, or it wasn't money back then, but if you're going to recruit this kid and show him off, and like he's a receiver in high school, he must know how to catch. I don't know, man. I don't know how you fuck this up, but they've been fucking it up for about 20 years now. Let's hope they don't get another tight end murderer guy, huh? But other than that, that's all I got. I'm gonna do homework, I think. No, I'm not. I'm gonna go to bed. Goodbye.